Well, there we go. We're back at it today. We are missing our leader and our mentor and our techie guy, Mr. MacKenzie Wilson. He is on assignment, as I like to say, in Saskatchewan. So tonight we're having myself fill in. I'm going to do the best I can, but I brought my reliable backup, Bill Biko, with me, and he's going to fill in and pick me up and brush me off when I make some mistakes. And ladies and gentlemen, we brought Viller back from SingleKey. He is here to fill us in on the new changes with SingleKey. So, welcome, gentlemen, to the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk. There you go.
Evening, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
How are you guys doing there? We're just going to do a little filler here, guys, while we wait for people to sign in. And I think, Bill, you're going to kind of watch how people look for the questions and stuff.
I'm going to try.
Great. And let's just see what we got going on here. Is it live on our page yet, Bill, or have you seen it?
It says it's live, but it's not. I've still got the countdown. So.
Oh. So
no, here we go. There we go.
Nice. Okay. We're up and running. So my apologies, folks. Bear with us. I haven't had my Techie 101 class. That's why I rely on Mac for that stuff. So, Biller, how are things down in Ontario? Here you gone red down there again.
Yeah, well, we're back to phase 2, or kind of like a modified version of phase 2. And now we're getting a lot of calls with, a lot of landlords are concerned actually about, the province going crazy again and putting another eviction ban for landlords, which, we think at this point is highly unlikely. There's already 35,000 backlog of cases at Landlord and Tenant Board in Ontario. It just doesn't make sense. We hear stories every day of folks not getting their rent check for 8 months since March, and those still haven't been resolved. So it's we're working through it, but we're kind of going backwards a little bit, and then hopefully we're back to normal soon. Yeah.
I've been fairly outspoken of it, but I contacted my local member of parliament. NLA, I guess I should say, and he in turn organized a meeting where we could talk right to the local minister, and he kudos to him. He held everybody to their own accountability. He had to do something, so he said, okay, no evictions for this period of time.
Yeah.
Then from there, he went and said, okay, it's wide open again. CERB payments are there. There's no reason for you folks not to make payments. You're getting money from the government, and you know how easy it was. You just check boxes and a check was sent to you. Whether you're right or wrong, they were going to sort it out later. And there's people that are going to have to answer to it later when it comes to tax time. But the money was there, so there's no reason not to pay. Then it came down to, okay, meaningful discussions and how to start making a repayment schedule. And, this was a topic that came up on our page where we said, hey, take the rent payment that's due, divide it by 12, add that 112 back in and just make it that extra 100, or they can catch it up whenever they like. Oh, people like that. That was a great plan. But then you get other people, renters, who had this idea, well, you get a deferral. Why can't I have a deferral?
Right.
So you get the government money and you think because you got a paycheck, you don't have to pay because you think I can get a deferral. Well, not every landlord could get a deferral either. So
right, and a deferral is not exactly a paycheck either, right? You're still paying interest on that loan, and it's not like it's forgiven. You're going to have to catch up on that.
Yeah. You correct me if I'm wrong, but you think about it. You're going to get a deferral. Okay, so one, it's either deferred to the end of the term and you have to make it up. So if you just got the mortgage and it's a 5-year term, you got 59 more months of interest now on that payment. If it's deferred on your 25-year amortization, now you got 25 years of interest on that payment.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough situation, and to be frank, Chris, I think what the government had to do is to kind of just overreact in the beginning because they weren't sure in terms of what they were, what was in store, and it was one of those cases where it was better safe than sorry. That there hasn't been any indication to believe that there may be another eviction ban coming soon. So, and I think now that, I think we're better at knowing how to manage COVID, and we have a better handle in terms of hospital capacity and all that. I don't think they're going to go to that extreme measure of stopping all evictions again, or at least that's what we're hearing from our Ontario Landlord Board, as well as the lobbying groups that we're part of as well. But you never know. If it's a real crisis, it's possible, and it definitely affects older businesses as well. So it's
absolutely. And I, as far as I'm concerned, some of these government handled it very poorly. I'm sure there was people who just want to take their keys to the government and say, "Here you go. You're the new landlord. Thanks for screwing me over." The person living there has no consequence. I have all the consequence. So, Bill, we're kind of yakking here. What was your thoughts on that?
You do great. It's crazy. The deferral stuff, again, as has been pointed out, it doesn't mean it's free for the landlords, and that's what the tenants don't understand. And when you try to explain it to them, it does get a little more apparent to them. They may not care as much, but you end up with the extra costs. And the other thing that people neglect to understand is, if you have a pretty new mortgage and all those extra payments get added on, there's a very real chance that you may not qualify or be able to renew when it comes up to term, because there could be more owing, especially if values drop. So you're just shuffling more and more risk onto the landlords. And now, we look at BC, one of the political parties is saying they're going to freeze rents out there. There's going to be no rent increases for another couple of years, I think it was. So, with all the taxes going up to compensate for all the free money that's been floated out there, it's going to be some pretty challenging times. So back to Alberta here, we're in a pretty positive situation right now with the way groups like this have been able to deal with the ministers and set everything up, and how the RTDRS and all the structures have been put in place where it's short-term, working with tenants versus just straight evicting and bans on eviction. So it's a pretty positive situation right now.
Yeah, I don't think people realize the strength that this group has. Just to congratulate everybody who's a member of the group, we're up just over 1,900 members now. I don't know if you're aware of that, Bill, or you're following it. But,
amazing! Wow.
Yeah.
We joined you guys in the summer, and you were at like 1,200, 1,300. That's very fast. Wow.
Yeah, it's gone very well. Well, gentlemen, we're up to about 10 viewers, and people will just keep popping on from that point on as they get notified. So, Bill, tell us what you got going on in SingleKey and how it's going to make our lives as business owners so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get into that, Chris, as well. Bill, to kind of just add a bit more to your point, it's a similar situation here as well. The bill to basically freeze rent increases for the next for the next year, for 2021, is going through, and it looks like it will be passed as well, which is unfortunate because costs are going up, utilities are higher, taxes aren't going away. So there's definitely a bit of a squeeze, I think, on the landlord side here as well. I actually was fortunate to spend most of the a good chunk of the summer in BC, out in Victoria as well as in Vancouver this summer, which was great. I got a chance to go and meet the guys that we work with, a company called Certain out of Victoria. They're the guys that supply us with the background check, basically the system that plugs into the provincial court system across Canada, and is able to tell us if any of our applicants have any felonies, convictions, charges, or even past evictions that have gone to court and have been awarded. One interesting thing, a pattern that I noticed, especially in some of the larger cities, and we're lucky that we talk to landlords, from small towns and large cities across Canada. There's been a bit of a flight away from big cities, So we were in downtown Vancouver. It was very quiet, especially in the summer when it's peak tourist season. It was mostly, I would say, tourism from within Canada, from Ontario and other provinces coming to visit because they couldn't go anywhere else. But we're also seeing rents drop substantially, especially in the big cities, right? Big, expensive urban centers. And I'm calling you guys from downtown Toronto now. Rents have dropped here about 25% over the last, I'd say 2 quarters. And the quality of tenants has decreased substantially as well. What's happening is it's a bit of a flight for professionals. People that don't need to be in front of their desk anymore have no reason to stay downtown. So they're all moving out in the suburbs, and we're seeing more activity in kind of the ring outside of the big urban centers. And we're seeing similar patterns across all the big cities as well. So it's an interesting kind of phenomenon. Now, in terms of SingleKey, so the reason I wanted to join you guys is because we've been working hard to make a lot of updates to our product over the summer, and we actually posted an update there on the group. So some of the big features that we've added onto our report. First of all, I'm sure you've noticed a new look. Some of you guys have actually ordered one in the last month or so. And maybe Chris, this might be a good time for me to just kind of share my screen, do a bit of a show and tell as well with the guys.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I don't have my techie guy with me, so you're able to take care of that.
Yeah, no problem. Here we go. So you guys let me know if you can see this, and I'll pull up my sample report here.
There we go.
Good to go.
Awesome. So the first thing is you'll notice that page 1 and 2 has completely changed, that we've added these 4 gauges at the very top. And the goal for this was basically, we've got a pretty long report now. It's over 10 pages long. And sometimes you just need to know kind of like the most important things about your applicant right away. So what we've done is we've brought like your SingleKey score, which is kind of the overall score on the tenant for pretty much combining all their attributes. We've brought up your credit score at the very top as well. We've brought in the rent-to-income ratio. And this is something that we actually asked the landlord or realtor to put in at the time of inviting the tenant, and then we asked the tenant to state their income, and we calculated. Obviously, wisdom dictates that below 30 kind of a rent-to-income ratio is typically a good kind of number, even up to 40% in some cases when you're considering pre-tax income. But that's definitely something to kind of keep an eye on. And then lastly, this is an important one as well, and I would say that we're probably one of the only report providers that actually kind of summarize all the debt payments that we're seeing throughout Equifax. So if you have student loans, if you have car loans, you have mortgage payments, we'll bring all that up here, because this is an important indicator to let you know if they have enough disposable income after paying their rent and their monthly debt payments to be able to actually live, right? So, by just taking a quick peek at this, if you're seeing a lot of red, it's probably not a good thing. And if you're seeing some green, that's definitely good. Now, the entire kind of look of the report has changed. We've kind of reorganized some of the fields as well. So we've got, obviously your applicant information at the very top, the employment information on the next page, and this is your previous landlord reference information. And then we actually have 2 of those sections. So you can have your previous landlord and the one before that. And then we have some of the miscellaneous things, like do you have a car, pet, what type of pet, etc. The next change now, I'm going to scroll further down to show you guys, but if we get towards the end, and this is a feature that we've added recently. So when we get when you invite the tenant to apply through our application process, on one of the pages we give them the option to actually upload proof of income, and that could be in the form of pay stub, employment letter, a T4 tax statement, or even bank statements if they're showing the deposits. So this is a great feature we're seeing, and for us, making that tenant application as user-friendly as possible is a top priority. So we don't want to force people to upload it, but we strongly recommend it, and we say that, hey, if you do upload proof of income, you have a much higher success rate, in terms of getting that lease. So we do recommend it, and we're seeing about a 60 to 70% upload rate for the tenants that do get invited through our report. And that's what that would look like attached at the end of the report. In addition to that, obviously, we will ask for your applicant ID so we can verify their identity. And then we ask them for some pet information. So we'll ask, hey, how large is your pet? And in terms of weight ranges, as well as a picture upload.
I got to just jump in here, Bill. I absolutely love this. That, you know what? This is the pet I'm bringing, and you go over there and you find a Great Dane. Yep. You go, something's wrong. One of these things doesn't belong.
Yeah, especially in a 500 square foot studio apartment, right?
Yeah.
So these are all important things for a lender to know. So we wanted to build this out and kind of add this functionality. A lot of the feedback came from some of the members of the group, including yourself and MacKenzie. So it was on our to-do list, and I'm glad we got it out and are able to kind of offer it to you guys. As part of this, I wanted to maybe quickly share some other updates as well. So what we're working on now, the next feature is an automated landlord reference check. So when the tenants fill this out, we will typically ask them for the previous landlord's information, and they'll give us their current landlord and the one before that. and these are optional. Most people do fill out at least one of them. So what we compiled is a nice email that will go out to Jennifer in this case and say, hey, Jennifer, I think it was John Doe. Yes, John Doe is applying for Chris Noble's, rental apartment, and he's wondering if you can provide a quick kind of a rating on the applicant. And what will happen is that we will send them a kind of like a rating page, and it'll look something like this, right? Where they can actually, and Frog Timbit is kind of like our test name there, but they'll be able to kind of rate the applicant based on cleanliness, paying rent on time, causing any damage, and any other information they want to share as well. And they can submit that. And as soon as they do that, a copy will be sent to you guys, free of charge, basically just as an update to say, hey, by the way, here's what the previous landlord said about this tenant when we reach out to them. So it's a nice little kind of automation feature that I think will be very helpful. Now, the next thing that we're working on, and we're really excited about this as well, I would say the credit report is a very important piece of the puzzle. But what's even more important is that income information. It's the actual financial situation of the tenant. So, Chris, what are some things that I can ask you guys? What are some things that you're wondering about the financial health of your applicant that you don't get on the credit report?
I guess I'd love to know what's their payment history. Are they an R1, R2, R3?
Yes.
When I say that, I know that from my previous life in the financial world. Yeah. If I saw straight R1s, which means R means revolve. Both of you people are just catching in. An R1 means a revolving credit, such as a credit card. R1 means you pay it off regularly, or you meet all your payments.
I'm impressed you actually know those codes. Like that's great. Most people have and people ask us all the time. It's like, what's an R1? What's a 01? 09, M5? Yeah.
And I think an R2 means you pay it 30 to 60 days late, and R3 is 90 and over. Am I right on that?
Yeah, you're right. So each number is 1 month basically. So R1 is your 30 days behind, R2 is your 60 days behind, et cetera, as you add on. Once you get to 9, it's pretty much a written off loan, just like for example.
But an R1 is a good rating. You pay within 30 days, right? You're not 30 days behind, right?
Well, it means that you were just you basically just missed it by 30 days. So you've paid within 30 months. What you want is an R0. So R0,
an R0, right? Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Now, besides, obviously, these are important, and you do get them in the credit report. What about savings? Is that important? Like, hey, especially if you don't have a credit score, or maybe you're a student new to Canada, or just have a lousy credit history, but would it be important if they had $50,000 in their bank account?
Darn right, because I want to know where to access it when I want to take it when they wreck my place. Yeah, absolutely. It shows some good ability. You may not have a credit card, but you show that you have the ability to pay cash or have money in place. So absolutely, that's a great indicator of a person who can save money.
Absolutely. So that's a big one. The other thing that I would look at, and this is part of the reason why a lot of landlords are actually asking, especially given the higher risk atmosphere that we're in, they're asking tenants to provide bank statements to them. And why do they do it? Well, one of the main reasons is, and I'm going to stop sharing here just so you guys are not distracted by this, but part of the reason why they're asking for
oops.
I think Biller deleted himself.
Let me close that last window.
Okay. Oh, he's coming back. Here we go. I'm going to add him to the stream. There he is.
There you go. Wrong button. Sorry, guys.
We lost your screen, so you'll have to put that up, and I can add it back in for you, Biller.
Yeah, no, and that's fine, because that's what I was trying to do, actually. I was just wanted to stop sharing my screen. So what I was trying to get to is the reason that a lot of the landlords are actually asking for bank statements from tenants is they're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for that employment income going into their bank account and seeing the credits going in every month, right? That's an important one because it saves them the phone call to verify the employment with the employer, which is great. Secondly, they're looking for, obviously, for savings. So, hey, what is that balance on the account? Thirdly, they're looking for debt payments. So what are the obligations? What are those car lease payments looking like? Do they have any mortgage payments? Do they have any child support? Stuff like that. And lastly, and most importantly, the most important thing that you get from looking at a bank statement is that you look at, hey, has this person paid the previous landlord in full and on time over the last, let's say, 12 months or last 24 months, right? So all of this information you can get by just actually plugging into somebody's bank account and looking at their past 24 months of transactions. Now, mind you, you're going to get a lot more than just that. There's going to be a lot of noise in there as well. So how do you just kind of pinpoint yourself to just that information? So this is exactly what we're doing. We're actually working with another company out of Vancouver, a tech company that allows the tenants to apply with their bank account. So when they get invited to do a single key screening, what will happen is it'll say, hey, you have two options. You can either, take the manual route and take a picture of your pay stub, employment letter, ID, pet pictures, whatever, and just upload them manually. Or you can take the easy route and just log in with your bank account, and you can choose which bank you work with, whatever, TD, RBC, and then you can log in with your bank credentials like you do on the CRA website, for example. And what will happen is that we will basically take a peek inside the bank account, and we will pull only that relevant information and summarize it into a one-pager for the landlord, where we can show that, hey, applicant John Doe has $50,000 of minimum balance on their bank account, so that's your savings. They're paying on average about $300 in monthly debt payments. They've got an income stream coming in from employment income or other sources of, let's say, $5,000 a month. And here's a list of all the rent transactions that they've paid or mortgage transactions that they've paid. And this is really cool, right? Because it saves you two phone calls. It'll save you that phone call to the employer to make sure that they work there and that they're actually still there and they're getting that employment income. And two, it saves you the call to the previous landlord, because now you know if they've paid them on time or not, which is really cool. So this is a real game changer. I'm really excited to kind of to be working on this. And these guys out of Vancouver, Inveright is a team we're working with. They're really good kind of data science people that have figured out how to go through hundreds of transactions and only isolate the ones that are relevant to us, which again, rent payments, savings, income streams, and debt payments. Right?
Right now.
Yeah.
What would be interesting too now is, let's say you have that, you have that AISH, or in Alberta we call it AISH, Assured Income for Severely Handicapped, or you have a means of financial support coming in for the single mom with several children, whatever. So you see that she says, I get $4,000 a month. I can afford this. What would be great to see, okay, great. You show the $4,000 coming in. But now you get down to the 30th of the month and you have a bank account balance. You see this regularly, or sorry, you'd be able to see this of $200 or $100 or $50 or $10. That's a flag to me. How do you have $4,000? What are you doing? Why does that money go down so quickly? You haven't told us about all these other expenses. So a little bit of a flag there.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a good point actually, and I think what you're alluding to is kind of like maybe having some sort of like this is something that this is actually very good feedback and something that we should probably build into our logic as well. So it's interesting seeing that income coming in, but how much is going out, right? So if $4,000 is coming in every month, how much is going out of the account and where is it going? So that's a really interesting one. We can kind of have like a spend to income ratio, so you can get a sense of what are the ins and outs on a monthly basis to see if this person is a saver or someone that can actually budget and live within their means, or if it's someone that is spending every dollar that comes in and is living paycheck to paycheck. Ultimately, what happens though, Chris, is that all of that will flow into your balance, right? So if you are somebody that budgets well, lives under, basically brings in more money than they spend, what will happen is your savings eventually will keep increasing, right? Whereas if you're somebody that's constantly, overspending, your balance is going to be zero and you're likely going to be in debt. So by just looking at like the ins and outs as well as the balance, you'll get a pretty good sense of, what type of consumer they are.
Let's, okay, so how did I want to word this? Will a landlord be able to see every single expenditure? A 7-Eleven, $1.50, Tim Hortons, $2. You're going to see all those transactions?
Yeah, and that's a good question. We're looking towards the legal side of that, and it might not be possible to do that, Chris, because some of that is PII information, like privately identifiable information. So there could be issues in terms of identity theft, etc. So we might have to summarize it on a monthly basis and say, hey, we can show you the rent payments and if they were made on time and in full, and we can show you the balance for the month and the total total income coming in, total debt payments, but we may not be able to give you the transaction level information for everything.
Well, I'm actually kind of glad to hear that. You know what?
Plus,
how much information is too much?
We would have a hard time as well, kind of convincing the tenant to just give us full access to all of their information as well.
Yeah.
The way we do it now is by asking very nicely and being very transparent to say that, hey, here's the information we're going after. We're looking at your ability to be able to pay the rent and afford this unit. So we're going to pull just your balance on the account, your income levels, and your previous payments to your previous landlord. And that information will pass on to your landlord.
Right. So I'm going to say this as myself, when I was a renter many years ago, like my bills were my priorities. Everything was paid on time. Knowing what I know now, even further down the line, if I could possibly miss out on a great renter because we're asking for too much information. So you balance that out for us, and you assure do you assure the applicant that only a certain degree of information is shared? Because you know what? I'll pass and I'll go somewhere else and find another house.
And you're absolutely right about that. And that's why for us, making that application form, fillable under 30 seconds is a top priority, because I think that's been one of our competitive advantages for a long time, where our application form had an 85% completion rate, whereas Neighborly's was about 50%, because you're right, they were asking for way too much information. And that might work in some really hot markets with super low vacancy where the landlord has all the leverage, but it won't work everywhere. And we want our system to be able to work to work across Canada. So what we can do is we can give you the option or the ability for you to kind of make certain things mandatory. So for example, everything that I just talked about is optional. So we obviously we're going to make suggestions and try to steer tenants in this direction by saying that, hey, if you log in with your bank account, your information will be, obviously safely guarded. It'll be summarized, and a summary will be shared with your landlord. And here's exactly what we're going to share. We found that you'll have a much higher success rate of being approved for this lease if you do choose to use this. But it's by no means mandatory. We can give you the power as a user to actually mandate what is required and what's not. So you can say, hey, you know what? I just need a pay stub. So if you can upload a pay stub, I'm good to go. We'll be able to run the report and process the application. Or you can mandate that they log in with their bank account, right? So, and you can make the decision on a case-by-case basis. You find somebody that's really kind of, really wants the place, you can choose to make some of these things more mandatory than the others and use your judgment.
Oh, that's great. So in the end, Bill, let's say we go sideways and I need to do some collections. I end up in court. All that nonsense starts. This report would have been given to me in full. I will have it. I'll have the proper identification there. I'll have the banking information there. Should I have to do a garnishee? Maybe, do I have vehicle information? Do I have any of that?
So these are very good questions. And again, because this is like an in-progress feature, we're trying to figure out what we can and cannot get away with, because at the end of the day, we do have, privacy is a very important piece. The bank account information, if I could share that with you, that would be huge, right? Because you know exactly which account to go after if money's owed. But we may not be able to release that. We may be able to tell you which branch it could originate from. So these are some of the questions that we're trying to really determine the answer to with our legal counsel. One thing you wouldn't get from the Equifax report, though, is their savings. So if somebody decides not to pay rent for 3 months on your rental and they have $100,000 in their bank account, that's something that's information you can definitely use to your advantage, right?
Yeah. Bill, what are you thinking?
Yes. The big challenge,
guys, feel free to brainstorm with me as well, because a lot of this stuff is kind of under development. It'll be tested. It'll be a while before we get this, perfect. But I'm pretty excited about the potential that it has.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff in there. Privacy laws are where you're going to get caught up on.
Yeah,
and that's going to be that biggest hurdle. But if you can segment it, containerize it, so you can say this is what's going to debt, this is what's going to household expenses, and this is what's going to rent, that would be still so helpful. And get information like vehicle payments, so you know where some of that money's going to and what's going on. And finally, if they do have $50,000 in the bank account and they're not paying, having that information as part of your application for an eviction would be huge.
Yeah,
it would show that the tenant's not under hardship; they're just being a jerk in this case. We did have one question that popped up from Nicole. And she was wondering, wow, is this what the CRA can do to us as well, as far as getting all that banking information? And I don't believe they can access all of that without our approval. So back to privacy stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Nicole. That they can, they do have the ability to do that. So, for example, at your CRA account, you have the ability to link your bank account to your CRA. So, for example, if you're getting your tax return, it'll go straight to your bank account. They're using the exact same technology. Your ability to log in with your bank verifies you as the bank account owner, and then they'll automatically link your bank account to their system. Now, mind you, you have to actually consent to that explicitly. So they will ask you, once you log in with your bank account, hey, do you want to link your bank account to the CRA? And we will have to do the same thing. We can't just basically do that without their permission. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So Bill, some really exciting stuff. We're really glad we ended up partnering with you and found you, and you found us. We had a great initial growing period, and now it's just kind of blossomed into some fantastic stuff for our group. It's very impressive. And I do everything I can when I'm going through and I see people talking and trying to figure stuff out. I tag you and for you to throw in your 2 cents on what they're looking for, and I wish more people would try it. Tell the viewers, if you would, Biller, what's their cost to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm happy to participate, guys. You guys have a great group here, and we're part of a number of these, and I would say this is by far the most engaging one. I can tell you for sure that nobody else is doing weekly kind of streams with their members, which is awesome. And I actually, this is always running in my background as well. So whether or not I'm here, participating as a member, I'm always watching. So I find these very helpful. So thanks for putting these together, Chris and Bill.
Is that kind of, sorry, I have to put this, is that kind of like a Big Brother thing, always watching, or what's that all about?
You know what, I need something in the background. You guys are very soothing. It's great. But you know what, at the end of the day, we're always learning, and the best way to learn is to kind of learn through somebody else's experience. And everybody has their areas of expertise, and for example, the evictions conversations you guys had a couple of weeks ago, I found that very interesting, and I learned a lot about the kind of the Alberta process as well. So this is amazing. Now, in terms of our services, as you guys know, we offer this credit check that we're talking about. It's a $25 report that includes a full Equifax report as well as a background check on the tenant. And the exclusive offer that we have with the Alberta Landlords Facebook group is that we offer everybody 20% off. So for you, it'll be $19.99, and we have a specific landing page that you can go to get that deal. You just go there, click order now, follow the instructions, and you get your report in 5 minutes, which is great.
Wow. Just because you're a member of this page. There you go.
It's just worth hanging out here.
It is worth hanging out. And, there's some great information shared. And there's a little bit of swearing going on. I know that too, under people's breaths because of their tenants, but that's great. Biller, do you have anything else to add to us tonight with this, or?
And you guys, if you don't mind, I will move on. But thanks for having me here. This has been a fun experience, and the way I see it is that the reason we've gotten so far in such a short time, just like you have, is by listening to our customers closely. So we always welcome feedback, and if there's something that we could do better, or a new cool feature that we can add, or even just something that would be helpful to you, always let us know at info@singlekey.com, or give us a call on our 181 number, and we're always looking for customer feedback. So
we have one question before you go from Nicole Strong. She says, how long does it take to get an account set up? How long does it take to set up a SingleKey as a landlord?
Yeah, so Nicole, that's a great question. So now the way our system works is that you can actually place your first order for a credit or for a tenant report without even having to set up an account. So the way it works is that you click on that order now button, you choose one of the two options. You can either just enter the tenant's info if you have a rental application filled out, for example, and you have their name, date of birth, and address. And then you will get, it'll ask you for your credit card so you can make the payment. And right after that, it'll prompt you to set up an account just with the username and password. That way, you'll be able to log in and within 5 minutes see the results of the report. The alternative option there is also to invite a tenant with their email address. So, if you don't have, if they haven't filled out a rental application, you can just put in their email address, invite them. We'll send them our digital rental application. they'll be able to complete that, and as soon as they do, we compile the report and send it back to you. So in both cases, the report goes back to the landlord, not the tenant.
Nice.
You're always welcome to share it with them. There's no problem with that, but we just typically send it back to you.
I think that's a great thing. It's about transparency, right? You want to, there's nothing to hide. If you're going to take them as a tenant, say, here's the great report I just got on you. It's their information. Let them see it and say, oh, they'd be surprised. Wow, there's that much out there. Yeah. Oh,
and this is why I chose you. You've done great. That's why you're my new tenant.
And just just tell them how. Yeah, exactly. So, Bill, if there's anything else, I'm going to let you run because you're a couple hours ahead of us. So you're dealing with about 9:30 at night right now. So,
yeah, that's right. Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure as always.
Always a pleasure chatting with you, sir.
Right, hang out.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Take care. All right. Oh, there you go, sir. We're just the two of us.
Uh-oh. Now what?
Now what? Let's start with the questions. Like, got to get our viewers up here a little bit. We're up to 10. Like, if you guys want to throw some questions at us now, we'd love to hear them. If you saw something on the page that you think would be great for a discussion point here, let's go ahead and type it in. We'll put that question up. Bill and I will flip through the page. Look
at the page, Chris. This is one of the things we talked in the pre-chat about that you wanted to bring up right away.
Yeah.
A 3-time offender. Why don't you segue off onto that one?
3-time offender. Our good old, one of our legal guys, Donald Gray, up in Edmonton there, he has had round 3 different landlords get spanked by the same tenant. And he 3 times has kicked this person out of a residence having to use a bailiff. Can you imagine what the expenses are? Tell me that's not a professional tenant.
Well, exactly. And I guess the message I get out of this is there's still tons of landlords out there that aren't doing adequate screening. And when you have something like SingleKey that takes a lot of this pressure off, it's a huge step forward, and it's a great tool for landlords. I mean, this is a basic screening they can do on their own to begin with. They're calling references and doing all their own due diligence, but you had a tool in like SingleKey, and I see Nicole has commented here that she's used Tenant Check for years and had to put a statement on her application form. As a side note, those statements where you're asking to get their credit done are handy to have, because if things do go sideways in 3 or 5 years and you've got a signature saying that you're allowed to check their credit, you can check their credit again later and find out where they're potentially working and or living now. So don't necessarily get rid of that credit check statement on your application form. Keep that and kind of keep it for your own records. And who knows, you might have to go ahead 6 months later, pull their credit just to find out where they're living if you need to serve them with some additional stuff.
Well, that's a great point you bring up, because depending on how you get your application worded, as long as they are a tenant of yours or in some kind of collection process after the fact, they're still kind of considered a client because you're still dealing with them. You can continually update and keep finding them. I'm going to segue from that right into, Nicole, we'll get to your question in just a second here. But where we go as well is to the Landlord Credit Bureau. I was on the phone for about 45 minutes with Marvin today from the Landlord Credit Bureau. And he commented on Don's post, and then I reposted it so people would go and read what Marvin had to say. The simple fact is, had that person been reported once, even the second time, guaranteed the third time wouldn't have happened if people were reporting and using the Landlord Credit Bureau as well. I should have checked with Viller to see how the ties are with the two. And we'll probably do that and see if the two companies are overlapping in their background checks, or whether Viller talks to them. But regardless of it, you spend $20 with Viller and you spend whatever $20 with Landlord Credit Bureau, if in fact that's the amount, and you get 2 great checks for $40. Is your $300,000 or $400,000 investment not worth $40?
Yeah, Marv was actually watching earlier. I don't know if he's still around here. If he is, he can hi. But
yeah, Marv, by all means, you can jump in here. Maybe we can even send you a link and bring you in as part of the show too. We'll figure out how to do that if it's of interest to you. I'll bring you in midstream here. What else? What else?
Hey, he's here.
About that late? Is he?
Yeah, he is watching along.
Did you actually, Bill? If you just slide over to your messenger, and that's where MacKenzie sent you the link.
Yeah.
Would you flip it over to Marv, and then Marv can just join in? I'll let you guys work on that, and I'll chat a little bit more. I'll go to Nicole's question here. Nicole says she has an upcoming RTDRS for eviction and non-payment of rent. Any tips for the hearing would be appreciated. I'll tell you one thing about the RTDRS. Evidence is a little loose in there. It's not a typical court thing. But if at all, Nicole, you want some help, we have two or three, four great guys that are a member of our page that help with hearings, and to get them involved or maybe represent you could be money well spent. I know Rob Bonin and Don are deadly at this stuff, and they can get in there and they know what to say, what needs to be done. And Rob, I like to tease him a little bit. Being a ginger, he's pretty challenging to the RTDRS when they start kind of maybe heading down a road that they kind of aren't supposed to be on, or a path. He challenges them, brings them back and into check. So he's made a pretty good name for himself. When they see his name come up, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So Nicole, if afterwards you want to send me a note, I can connect you with one of those guys for a quick chat. So Bill, what are your thoughts on that?
Document. The whole thing is, Chris mentioned the evidence is kind of loose, but if you have all the evidence showing that you've tried to work with the tenant, if you show that the tenant has been paying, you've got all this documentation to back yourself up, huge advantage. A lot of landlords go in there with a couple pieces of paperwork basically saying the tenant didn't pay, here's my one receipt showing they didn't pay. And now it's kind of a he said, she said crapshoot when you go in there. If you've got all your documentation lined up, it can typically be a cakewalk, especially if you understand the process. Yeah. Once you've gone through it the first time, it's a little tough. Second time gets really easy. Third time, it's just, unfortunately, a cakewalk after a while. And I guess the other important thing I always tell people when they're doing the application is ask for what you want. If you want the tenant out in 10 days, ask to get the tenant out in 10 days in your application and explain why they should be out in 10 days. A lot of landlords just leave it in the hands of the hearing officer, and suddenly they discover that the hearing officer lets them stay for another month till the end of the month, as long as they make a minimum payment or something. And it's like, if they are a problem, that's unacceptable. And this is why I need them out. I'm scared of potential damage. They've threatened, all these other things.
Right. Nicole's asking what kind of curveballs and things to expect. Nicole, you never know. The best thing to do is be prepared for what your tenant may say, but go with the facts. As long as you're dealing with the facts, it's pretty hard to dispute the facts as long as your paperwork's there. So.
The curveballs tend to be just outright lies.
Marv just joined us, so I'm going to bring Marv in here and add him to the stream. Oh, there you go. Good day, sir.
How you doing, young fella? Haven't talked to you in years.
Can you hear us, Marv? We can't hear you. Your mic's not working or something. There you go. We got you now.
Hear me now? Good evening.
Yeah. Loud and clear, sir.
Good. I was going to comment on your hairlines. Going to comment on the hairlines for both of you. But
what hair?
Oh, had to do this. All right. There you go. Try it again. So there we go. So Marv, welcome aboard there. We should chat a little. We had a great chat this afternoon about what the Landlord Credit Bureau can do to help people. And let's talk about this person, this 3-time offender, if you will, how that could have, your system or the Landlord Credit Bureau could have prevented that. Did we lose Marv again?
No, I'm getting a lot of feedback.
What are you hearing? Oh, he's gone. He'll come back. let's just see what happened here. There you go. Are you back, Marv?
I'm delayed about 5 seconds, and then I hear the both of you talking over top of each other.
Is it, do you still have the live stream going in the background as well?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
So yeah, if that other stream's running, it'll probably be overlapping itself a little bit.
Yeah, if you turn the other one off, Marv, that would be the best way to do it. So he keeps turning himself off.
So the curveball is tenants lying, and that's why you need all that documentation, Nicole. That was the end of my last segue there. So.
Yeah, document. That's the best way you come in there. You're well prepared. How you doing, sir? Are you back up and running?
Technology, when it works, it is wonderful. When it doesn't work, we don't have any hair left.
If you have background noise, Marv, it's because you got the other one running. So.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully. Right. Precisely.
All
okay.
Right.
Give us a little insight into Landlord Credit Bureau and what you can do to prevent these 3-time offenders.
So let's talk about the 3-time offender. If he'd have been reported the first time, it wouldn't have happened the second time, right?
Right. And how would that have happened? How did to explain the system a little bit for the people that are watching here?
So landlords need to network to identify the good renters and the bad renters, so this doesn't happen. So back in the 80s, I started a service with landlords, and I'm still getting the feedback.
Do you still have the Facebook window open? You might have to either close your Facebook tab or mute the video that's playing on it.
Let's check here. Okay. All right. Hopefully that canceled out.
Actually, you sound a bit better there too.
All right. Well, let's try it. So we shut that off. So the Landlord Credit Bureau. All right.
Yes,
so
sir.
the landlord. Oh, frig.
I love it. This is great.
Well, we did put you on the spot by just dragging you in here all of a sudden. You probably weren't quite prepared for this. So.
It's not working, guys.
Yeah. Well, you must have something running on the other side or another. If you can turn that other program off, because we can hear it feeding back.
So let's pick a time next week or something, Bill, and we'll get on and we'll do a segment on this.
That would be great. We'll get MacKenzie on that, and we'll have you in next week and have a little chat as to how it ties in. I can kind of sort of explain it, and you can follow along and put up some comments, and we'll put your comments up on the window for everyone to see there.
And
sound good?
And thank you for trying to step in on short notice. And it is good seeing you again.
Thanks, Marv. Have a good one.
Okay.
There we go. That's unfortunate. I think he's got 2 things open at the same time. All right. So anyway, back to the thing where Marv was trying to say was, had it been reported the first time, you have some negative information, you report it, boom, it's up. As long as we're all using the system, then you're going to find out about this person. This is the simplest way I can put this, is that if you have somebody who's a bad debt, let's talk about your credit card. You had a credit card and you didn't pay it, and you went through bank and you couldn't pay the bill, and the company had to write off a $5,000 bill because you couldn't pay it. That's similar to the fact that you had a tenant that couldn't pay their rent. Now you've had to write it off, and you had to go through the courts and everything else, or the RTDRS. Boom, you report that. If you did a credit check like you did through Villar's background, and he finds out they got a $5,000 credit card bill they wrote off and didn't pay, are you going to take that person as a tenant? It certainly is going to be a flag. You'd want to know more why they didn't pay the credit card. But would you take a tenant you found out just got booted out by a bailiff?
No, no.
Exactly.
It's one of those huge flags, and like you said, it's the power of networking. It's the power, like we see it with a lot of people posting and just questioning, does anybody know about this tenant? We're only 1,900 odd landlords in this group, which is still going to be a lot of properties, but there's thousands of other landlords out there that aren't members yet, that obviously aren't screening enough because this person's still finding new places to live in the province, I'm assuming. And it's just an ongoing issue. That's why the RTDRS is backed up at times. That's why there's all these eviction services that are backed up, because there are a lot of bad people out there that are bypassing good landlords who just don't know what to do.
That's right. That's right. So, you know what? One of that, talk to people about, you good landlord or landlords that don't know what to do. One of the things we talk about is running your business with your heart, because you bought into the story, the sob story, or the oh poor me story, or the heartbreaking part of it all. You need to do the background checks. Again, spend $40, you get 2 different reports. Like, is that not the simplest way? Isn't that the simplest insurance? $40 insurance, and you end up with a long-term renter that maybe is with you 2 years. Divide $40 over 24 months. What's your real cost?
Yeah, it's nominal. And it's not even that. Look at the cost of getting a bad tenant. With an average eviction being a couple months worth of rent, you're talking $3,000 by the time you're done. And that's if there's no damages, or it's not drawn out, or there's other outstanding issues. And that's with doing it yourself. If you're hiring somebody to do this, add another lost month of rent, and $40 sure gets insignificant after a while.
Let's talk about lost rent. That's another feature that SingleKey has, is where they, for whatever their fees are, you can get lost rent coverage through them, as well as damages, and they also will pay to get people kicked out of your place, to have them removed. So SingleKey has a number of things going on, and it is well worth going to their site, giving Viller a call, talking to him. He caters to this page because of the relationship and strength that we have as a community. So start asking the tough questions to SingleKey, and find out the value, the true value that it's going to bring you as a business owner. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. What's our next? I know one thing I want to bring up. I want to talk about people giving advice on our page. Okay. I am so excited to see the advice and the participation on the page. And my hat's off to all you folks. You're out there. You're helping each other out, and you're giving out the advice. You're giving out experiences and everything like that. My challenge to the group, the membership, the community, is to up your game. If you're going to quote something, and you are going to be a contributor to the community on a regular basis, I challenge you to start quoting sections such and such of the Residential Tenancy Act, or of the regulation states that this can be done. For you to first, when someone starts a sentence off with, well, I think, or it should be, that discredits you completely right there. You need to have the confidence to type in, this is what it is, and this is why it is, and this is where you find it at, and you quote the section. You know what it does? It educates that other person. They go, what? You would actually, believe it or not, you would actually encourage them. They would actually go read the damn Residential Tenancy Act, which I tell people, it should be beside your bed at night on your night table, and you should be looking over it and understanding it. It's not a lot to it, but print it off, and it should be handy to you.
And it helps you get to sleep faster if you read it.
Yeah, I think you'd only have to go through 2 sections, which is probably that long, and you'll be right sound asleep, but at least you'll be thinking about it all night. So
we do have a few more questions popping up here in comments. Sandra is, I am interested in building my landlord portfolio. Any experience or tips on how you acquire more properties would be awesome.
I think that's right down your alley, sir.
I guess it really comes down to where you're at in your real estate investing career. You only have so much money is one of the challenges. So one of the things that we did when we started is we were originally flippers, my wife and I. We flipped properties when we started out, and we got into a system where we would flip a couple properties, get some money to live off of and put into the bank account, get to a point where we had enough money to buy a rental property. We'd buy a rental property, we'd flip a couple more, do it again. And after we had a few properties starting to rack up and we've been running them for a year or two, we would then pursue joint venture partners, and we would have a property that had a solid cash flow, had a solid track record, and we would bring investors in to take a partnership position in that original property. They would put their money in. We'd have enough money to go buy one more property. And it just kind of created an upward spiral. So you were able to get a lot of properties lined up over a relatively short time. That was during the heyday in the early 2000s. So we were able to get over 50 properties that we dealt with in a very short amount of time. So that's
and I think opportunity is presenting itself right now with this whole environment, COVID environment, that there are communities out there where you can set up a great rental business at a very reasonable cost to get in. There are even some vendor take-back situations. I know I'm talking to other landlords. These people just need to get out of their stuff before they get into some financial trouble. So, Bill, could you talk about real quick about what's a vendor take-back?
Vendor take-back, we're starting to get a little more sophisticated here, but it's a pretty interesting concept. We've got vendor take-backs and agreement for sales, which are really starting to ramp up. There's actually some dedicated Facebook groups out there talking about these at the moment. Basically, with a vendor take-back is the homeowner, in a perfect scenario, their home's paid off, but they need to get out. They're not interested in necessarily selling it, taking a huge potential tax hit, especially landlords, if they've got a rental property they're selling. They may be willing to play the role of the bank and loan you money or keep money in the property so you don't have to put a bunch of money down. That's one of the tactics. Another one is where a mortgage may be partially paid down. The homeowner perhaps holds $20,000, $40,000, $100,000 as a second mortgage at a lower interest rate, allowing you to get in at a smaller amount again. And then when we start getting into the agreement for sale, they're retaining the mortgage. You're making payments with a plan to buy in the future, kind of a lease option, rent to own type scenario. And they're a lot trickier as far as paperwork goes. They're a lot trickier as far as legalities go. You really have to be on top of everything. You can't just jump into it and say, hey, buddy, can you loan me a rent to own form? There's far more to it than that, especially if you want to make sure that people succeed with the rent to own properties. We've done quite a few rent to owns, and we've had a success rate of probably only about 25-30% over a 2 or 3 or 4 year period. Things happen, divorces, layoffs. So you want to make sure you're lining people up for success in the long run, and that takes a little bit of extra work. So, I mean, if you start joining some of these additional Facebook groups and start listening to some of the stuff that are going on. I know we've got Barry McGuire up in Edmonton is doing some courses on agreements for sale. There's some people down here in the Calgary region that are involved with that group he's got going on. Lots of information out there, but definitely learn some of that stuff before you jump into it and try it.
Here's a question just to add to what we're talking about here. Sandra, in addition, says that properties are very close to being paid off. Would you recommend pulling equity?
What are your goals? So one of the things when you're a real estate investor is you need to figure out where you want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If you're relatively young, you've got a huge timeline to get all your properties paid off. So it's more of an acquisition type thing. You can let your tenants pay off the properties for 20, 25 years. And suddenly by the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you've got 5, 10, 15 properties that are all paid off, generating a couple grand of income a month. That's a beautiful scenario. If you're in your 50s, maybe your priority is to get those properties paid off. So you're doubling down on payments and you want to have, less acquisition and more debt paid off. If you're somewhere in between, or if you've got a really good paying job that's going to help you fund more mortgages, maybe you're back to acquisition stage. So everybody's plan's going to be what's going to suit them and where they want to be in 5 or 10 or 15 years. If you're talking sheer acquisition, maybe pulling some equity out with lines of credit might be an option, but now you've also got to be careful because not all the lenders are accepting lines of credit as down payment money. So do you want to put yourself in a position if you're 50 years old where you're tacking on another 25 years of debt onto a property just to gain another property or two? That might come down to getting the old Excel spreadsheet out and going, okay, I've got one property. I'm going to make this much cash flow. If I leverage that and turn it into 4 properties, will it put me further ahead if I gain a bunch of back-end debt to move this? So it all comes down to the numbers and what you're doing from a business standpoint. So,
well, the great thing about it too is if you are leveraging your equity from a rental property and you're putting it back into another investment, that interest can be written off versus just borrowing against it. If it's not for investment purposes, I don't believe you can write it off. I don't know the answer to it, but I think I'm right on that.
Yeah, so if you've got a line of credit, for instance, and you use that, all that interest is a write-off. But the complication ends up being, if you have the line of credit, it can affect your debt to service ratios. It can affect other things, and it depends on how you're buying. So it ends up being a combination of what your plans are, what your accountant says you can get away with and move forward with, and what your mortgage broker says you can get away with and move forward with.
Right.
So many landlords, there's different stages. You get to 3 properties and suddenly you hit a wall, and suddenly it's harder to get financing. You get up to about 8 properties and suddenly you've got a new wall, and it just kind of, you move so much further forward and you run into more challenges. After a while, the A lenders don't want to touch you because you've got too much debt, you're too risky. So then you have to move to B lenders, which creates additional risk. Yeah. So it becomes quite a chess game at times, and you've got to have smart people that you're dealing with. And this is back to a tax person, accounting person who's experienced with real estate and can give you advice as to how to move forward with real estate investments and save money in the long run. You need a good mortgage broker who understands that you're planning on adding to your portfolio, so he can't put you into limiting positions where you've got all this debt that you need to pay off because you've restructured yourself wrong. You mentioned that you're in your 30s, so you've got a pretty good window. If you want to be semi-retired or in a very strong financial position by the time you're in your 50s, maybe it's a matter of acquiring a bunch of properties right now. So acquisition should be more of your strong point. In which case you have to understand where the market's going. My personal thoughts are we're probably going to see a downturn in the market in the next 6 months, if not sooner. A lot of the growth in the market we're seeing right now, where there's a lot more sales and activity happening, is all that stuff that didn't happen in February, March, and April when everything was basically shut down. It's just been pushed back. So you really got to study the market and know where you're going, so you don't get handcuffed with properties as well.
Yep. Well, Bill, we are just over our hour mark, so I think we had a great show tonight, considering we didn't have our host, our main host, and I better watch it, Mac, because maybe I'll be taking over from here on in. Every day, every chance you give me here, I might be one step further to running you off here. I have my own Dr. Phil show.
The new tech guy, Chris.
Except we couldn't get Bill in on the fly here, so one day we'll get that figured out. But I just wanted to put this one up. This is from Barbara Bonk, and Barbara, very much appreciate the comment. We like hearing that. We'd like to hear from you guys. If you're happy with the show, things you'd like to see on the show, message myself or MacKenzie or Bill even, and message us and let us know what you want us to talk about. Ask us some questions. We'll bring them into the show on Wednesday nights. But thank you all very much for being a part of our group, for making it so strong. And the strength truly is in numbers, and this community is making changes. So over to you, Bill, for your final thoughts.
Always enjoy coming out. Always enjoy answering questions and trying to help people out. So just appreciate you guys doing all this and having me out so often. So.
Oh, that's great. No, you're a great one to have. So once again, folks, the landlord, Alberta Landlord Group here, and our only show in all of Facebook and all of Alberta dedicated to landlords and shop talking. Make your contacts on the page with others and bring people in, and we look forward to seeing you here just for that hour. Watch it if you can't afterwards. We can see that there's lots of views. So again, thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Night, everybody.
Night.